Listen up.
Welcome to the PowerShell Podcast, the podcast for PowerShell and the PowerShell community. And now, here's your host, Andrew Plaw.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the PowerShell Podcast, your weekly podcast for PowerShell, community, scripting, automation, GitHub, all the good things, even a dabble of AI in there, here and there, but not today. Because today we actually have a very special episode with some returning guests. Gilbert, one of our big-time returning guests, Gilbert Sanchez, has been on here so many times. Jake Hildreth. We're going to talk about PSStucco. We're going to talk about a new accessibility module that has hit the scene, making waves. Maybe a little talks about orgs on GitHub and how PowerShell can be a platform to learn so many cool ancillary technologies. Maybe we'll learn about Jake's experience with that recently. But if you want to keep up with us, check out the PDQ Discord, discord.gg/PDQ. Check out the PowerShell scripting channel. Our guest today, we regularly talk on there. Welcome to the podcast, Gilbert and Jake. How have you been?
Good, just coming down from the high of doing a live stream and the demo going sideways fast.
Oh my gosh. You did a live stream? Where was that?
Sideways.
PowerShell Wednesdays, every Wednesday.
2 p.m. Eastern. You can check us out. No, it was actually a fantastic presentation, in my opinion. We were talking about it a little afterwards. But the first 30 minutes, smooth sailing, baby. Maybe a little hiccup here and there, as any single time you run something in a terminal with the screen recording, things go a little bit awry. But I think it was actually really valuable to get to watch you troubleshoot live and sort of see how you approach navigating code and, oh, crap, it's this, it's that, where your eyes are scanning. And you got it working, so that's what counts.
Yeah, flying back left and right. The first 30 minutes, you mean the part that Jake presented? I was like,
yeah, you co-presented with Jake. But Jake had issues. He had Mac issues, remember? So
Mac issues. Nobody should write, store their code in iCloud is what I'm learning. Yeah. It should be stored locally.
I'm not an anti-Mac because I used a Mac for a long time and I've done a lot of cross-platform blog posts and stuff. But iCloud, you'll never get me on iCloud. It's just no, thank you.
Wow. Hot takes with Gilbert.
I'm sure I made people mad right there. I'm so sorry.
You did. It's okay. Gilbert, did you notice? I didn't get to look at the camera. We were talking about intros before I did the intro for this pod. I was a little turned up. Could you tell? Or did it seem like a normal intro? Was it on 11?
I felt it.
Just a little. I don't want to go zabbity badoo, but
I think you zabbity'd and you badooed. But it's
sir.
okay.
Wow,
I like it though. I like the energy. When I listen, to the podcast, I need that energy. So it's good.
A little boost. Listen in the morning. Oh my gosh, better than coffee. That's what PowerShell will do. For you.
Exactly.
That's right. But what did you all talk about at PowerShell Wednesday? As our first topic, it was PSStucco. But what did we cover in this talk? Jake, you can go first.
So I was going to say, about 2 months ago, I think it was, I wanted to explore new ways to build modules, right? Because never stop learning. And Gilbert had recently, I came across Gilbert's post about using Stucco, or I'd heard him talk about it or something. Stucco, it's in my brain. Found it on gilbertsanchez.com. Reading through, and I hit some point where I was just like, well, that's a lot of red text. What did I do wrong? And I, messed with it for a while. Didn't work. Reinstall everything, right? Try everything again. What did I screw up? It just kept hitting the same walls over and over and over. And finally, I'm like, Gilbert, I read your article. What am I doing wrong? And he's like, are you using Stucco or PSStucco? And that's where we went from there. So after learning PSStucco exists, I went through it. Everything worked brilliantly. And then I kind of shared what I did with actually both of you. And then I decided, you know what? I'm just going to update Gilbert's article and create a new version that specifically talks about all of the things that are not working in Gilbert's original article. So yeah, that's where we went. It was wild.
Heck of a journey. And you decided, so you went through it, you actually went and created the module, you learned PSStucco.
Yep. Learned it all.
Smooth, or what was that?
I mean, once it was, hey, I got through it. It was like probably 90 minutes from beginning to end before I had something actually published up on the gallery. And And yeah, to be fair, it was called, I don't remember what the name was, and it had one function in it, which was the default function built into the hello world function built into PSStucco. But hey, I got there, right?
You did the proof of concept. You got it published. You have, because PSStucco is kind of like a tool you can reuse. And as you're developing modules in the future, like as you are developing it and it's part of the GitHub, like you can take advantage of it. Are you going to kind of keep using it going forward?
Absolutely. So I actually took that shell of an idea and now using it to create ADCS Goat. So it's in the line of the Goat, Web Goat and AWS Goat and Azure Goat and Entra Goat, that they're like deliberately vulnerable things that are set up so people can pen test, learn pen testing ideas and stuff. Or, but yeah, since my bread and butter is Active Directory Certificate Services, it's very useful to me to have a vulnerable lab to go in and attack. So yeah, that's what I did.
So it makes things insecure.
It's intentionally insecure. Yeah, it's a automated lab-based install, and then using DSC and scripting to lay out a bunch of like vulnerable certificate templates and reconfigure the certification authority to be vulnerable to various attacks and stuff. So
wow, I might actually play with that a little bit because I've been wanting to just exploit things for fun. Just go through the motions, just to feel cool again.
It's the best way to do it is like just to and you can't do it at your work. You can't, or you could. It's what's that called? Resume generating event.
You could say that again. Yeah. Yeah, avoid it on the work machine. But I have a big flight coming up. Actually, this week that this podcast is live, I'm going to be at Tech Mentor in Redmond. If you're there, come say hi. But for the flight going there, just dabbling away on some IT stuff for the restless brain.
I'll let you know when the Goat goes live. Probably targeting probably end of August, mid-September, somewhere around there. So,
I got time.
You got a little time. Yeah.
But okay, so we're talking about PSStucco and modules and stuff like that. What is it? Is this like some kind of templating thing, or what can we start with and what can we expect to end with when we use PSStucco?
Gilbert, you take that.
Sure. So PSStucco is actually a fork of the Stucco module, which was Stucco was created by Brandon Nolan. God, I hope I'm remembering names. I'm going to slaughter
Brandon
names.
Nolan, Dev Black Ops.
Thank you. I'm always, like, I had this voice in my head. I was like, that's not right. And then that was forked because that repository had a few pull requests that had fixed some issues. And but unfortunately, it wasn't getting a new version wasn't getting published. So can't remember who the author of PSStucco is, but they worked it and then added those fixes and then basically made a working version of Stucco that they named PSStucco. And so this is sort of the kind of the living version of Stucco. So it's based off of Stucco and then kind of has fixes, which I need to continue to contribute to because that would have solved most of the red text we saw during the demo today. Because I know of fixes that I need to go submit there, but yeah, it's essentially a fork that continued to get improved over time.
Cool, and we can use it to like create a module like in the kind of beginning processes.
Yeah, so PSStucco and Stucco are both plaster templates. There's a few other plaster templates. One of the popular ones is Sampler. Gail made sure to tell me to go use it. But I think last time I was on the podcast, I talked about how like it's like another tool brush, or it's like another brush in your tool set, right? Like maybe Sampler works really great for this. Maybe you prefer Stucco for this. Like maybe Stucco is a good one to start with as a baseline and then build your own. But there's, again, Sampler, Catesta, is another one. There's quite a few who that are out there that you can use, but Stucco specifically is for building PowerShell modules, where some of the other ones include other things, which is maybe a feature, right? Like I think Sampler has the ability to generate DSC modules and things like that. So
Catesta can do secrets vault stuff.
Yeah. There's a few. So, definitely I think it's, the more you learn about the different templates out there, I think the more options you have as a as a developer to kind of create the thing that is the best for you.
Yeah, and I think once you have a templating thing, you're pretty much good. If it works for you, you're set. But if you don't have one, there is an incredible amount of value that you're missing out on that is such an easy win away, which I guess, Jake, you can kind of speak to because you've created modules without this kind of thing. What can you expect to get from using a templating thing like PSStucco that you wouldn't get if you were just writing your own PSM1 and PSD1 files?
The thing that really got me first is just it's the thing that the community came to a long time ago. You've got an individual function in individual files, right? Like that was mind blowing to me. Like just going from there, because I'm writing this thing and it's 2,000 lines long, and I'm scrolling around and I didn't understand regions and the map and VS Code and all this stuff. So like all right, where was that thing? And okay, Control F, I can find it with Control F, right? And then one of 2,000 entries in the file, and you're like, so that was the first thing. Like just moving to that templating idea, or having that separated out was huge. But then testing, automatically built-in testing, just for free as part of the template, like making sure your help is properly configured. What was the other one that you showed me today that I was not even aware was? Testing to make sure that the module actually works or imports
and loads. Yeah.
Hey, that's a thing that should happen before you decide to publish and make something available for public consumption. So like getting those testing things immediately was awesome. One of the older templating things that I used by Evotech, PS Publish module, like didn't include things like contributing by default, or it didn't include like pull requests templates, etc. And these are just included. So like things that make it look like an adult owns the repository, super helpful. super helpful.
Yeah, incredibly helpful, especially because I think a lot of people like writing a module and publishing it is its own hurdle and challenge and takes time to kind of build up to. And handling GitHub is another kind of separate challenge. And if you use a templating like this, it considers a lot of that stuff. Like if you've never even made more than one PR in your life, you may not know that there are templates you can have that'll like pre-fill out information that will make it helpful. So when someone wants to contribute in the future, that you get actually the relevant information and it guides them. And yeah, there's so many small helpful wins that come because whoever wrote this, their perspective, they're coming from perspective of open source. They are seeing this stuff all the time. They know all the best practices. So you can take advantage of that without actually having to go through that whole experience. And I think this is one of those things where the sooner the better. If you've written your first module, awesome. Your second module, you should really look at using something like this. Even if you don't fully dive in and understand every little file that's generated, that's okay. You get a ton of benefit. And man, those pester tests, like, can you imagine writing 100 pester tests to check for all these very common, simple things? I'd go crazy. But just borrow this. So
you get it out of the box, right? And I think it introduces. This was the thing that I thought was so powerful when I used it. Was it introduced a lot of these configuration files, like a dev container. I hadn't really played with dev containers. It introduced a bunch of the GitHub workflows that I kind of knew they existed, but I didn't really know what they did. Right?
Yeah. The workflow stuff is cool because like whenever I needed to do workflow stuff, I just yelled to Sam Erdy and he took care of it for me. Yeah. So like now I sort of am forcing myself to learn some of it. So yeah.
And what are workflows in this context?
GitHub workflows. So these are essentially actions that happen that can be triggered to do your testing, do the publishing. I'll send over a link that a talk that Stevie and I did around leveraging workflows to do different things. Something he built was a way to take issues and take action on issues. So I've seen people make issues that turn around and make PRs from making the issue. So like for PS tips, for example, like Dan Deadly Dog, he has that where you can submit an issue and it will actually make a PR from that issue, and that's all driven through GitHub Action. So there's a lot you can do, but you don't have to start that complex. You can start simple, and I think that's what you get out of the box is a very simple workflow.
Okay, so that's PSStucco. It kind of creates the module for us. You're also a contributor on Sake, which is spelled PSAKE, but yeah, Sake. How does that play into all this? So the build script that you get from PSStucco calls Sake.
So Saki is a task automation tool where you essentially define, it's a DSL, domain specific language, that allows you to define a task, what you do in that task. And more importantly, it lets you set your dependency. So before I do the build task, I want to do a clean task. And I want to call the task that generates the markdown files, that my build includes those things, or the YAML, for example. So that build script calls Saki, which then depends on another module that is part of the Saki organization called PowerShell build. And what that is a bunch of tasks that you can use to build modules. What's cool about PowerShell build is it already supports it supports not only Saki, but also invoke build. So if you prefer invoke build and you're like, I still want to leverage, like somebody already wrote this code, I like the way it works, I just don't like Saki, you can actually still use that stuff, right? Like you can, we make that easy so that you're not tied into one particular system. Obviously, I like Saki, it's why I became a core contributor. But again, I'm stepping in to an organization that's had several folks participate and become members, and I really saw the power of having an organization. So this sort of kind of how we ended up getting to the PSInclusive a little bit. So that conversation kind of came out of being like, well, I don't really want to publish that module under my name. Like, I don't think people are going to download Gilbert. Hey, it's Gilbert /accessibility. They're going to be like, who the heck is this, right? But if you have an organization that seems a little bit more professional, it's not just one person dictating what they think. We build a community that is inclusive, and we want folks to kind of chime in and offer their own ideas. Like, to me, that seems more productive. It seems like it probably has a better lifespan, right? Like, we've seen projects that go stale because the owners no longer are interested in the project or get overwhelmed, right? Like Jai-Tan, anyone? Like that's how
the original Stucco, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. So the original Stucco, Brandon got busy or decided that this wasn't a project he wanted to keep working on. But it's when you're the one person who owns something, it can become very overwhelming when you have the entire PowerShell community kind of asking. And so I really thought that it was important and valuable to have a GitHub organization where people can kind of contribute and build something together, right?
I think another benefit of that organization is the GitHub pages aspect, right?
Mm-hmm. You can get GitHub pages. But there's so one of the things that I like is being able to share workflows, right? Mm-hmm. Being able to share secrets where it's like, it doesn't really make sense for us to make individuals of these things. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. We talked about this in the demo, there are what are called the GitHub Community Health Repository, which is a .github repository in your organization, where you can share specific files like task templates or your code of conduct, right? Where you don't have to copy that everywhere, but that basically GitHub knows like, oh yeah, there's not a code of conduct file in this repo, but there is one in the organization GitHub folder. So like, again, standardizing and making things a little bit more streamlined so that it's consistent.
Can you tell me a little bit more about this PSInclusive thing though? Like, are there any projects in it?
Yeah, so the project we just published today as part of the demo was this accessibility module. So this actually came out of a conversation that I had with Jake, and I believe Bill Kindle did a lightning demo about something he was doing for his coworker who was colorblind. And so I thought, yeah, this seems like this seems so obvious that we should just make a module that is very easy for a person who has who needs to modify their shell so that they can work easier and not have to suffer through kind of the defaults. So I have ADHD, and one of the things I was interested in is bionic text, which is text that is bolded at different levels throughout throughout the word, and it helps your eye kind of go from left to right. And when I first saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, like it is. I just read that paragraph so much faster, and I was like, why can't I just pass strings from another output into a function and get that for free, right? And so that's how me and Jake started talking. I think actually the first thing we started talking about was like, hey, I heard you were going to work on this. I'm interested.
Yeah, you mentioned it during, actually, I think it was a PowerShell Wednesday. And, I saw you chatting about it. And then afterwards, like, hey, I would love to talk about that. And we chatted and yeah, it's just been a little bit of a bromance from then on out.
Here we are culminating with our audience with an amazing PowerShell podcast episode, and maybe people will check it out. Are you guys looking for contributors for this? I mean, it is inclusive,
Absolutely.
right? So I'm just saying.
No, absolutely. It's funny because we kind of struggled on the name, right? Naming things again is like one of the hard things in programming, right? And so
it took so long.
Yeah, but I think inclusive. I think Jake actually was the one who said inclusive, and on one end I was like, I don't want people to think include like I'm dot file including this thing. But I'm like, but at the same time I'm like, well, I want it to be an accessibility thing. I want it to be, potentially a diversity and inclusion thing, right? That stuff is very important to me. And so to me, if you have ideas, reach out. We have the organization. We want to create a place where we can make other people, be successful in finding other people who are like-minded, who can help, maybe navigate issues, right? Like I've had a lot of conversations around folks who struggle with ADHD and trying to manage that, and as a quote unquote lover of PowerShell, I use PowerShell often to solve a lot of those problems, right? So, but to me, that's kind of the where I would start to push some of that stuff of like, here's all the little things I've done that maybe I haven't shared publicly, or like I shared but I haven't polished to that level. Maybe I start to kind of push that stuff there. Or if people find like, hey, I have a thing that I wrote that I think would be helpful, that helps people with dyslexia or whatever, right? Like maybe they can contribute that stuff. So
that's awesome.
I really wanted to call out the why that you put in the README as well. Like why PSInclusive? Because PowerShell is for everyone, and we're here to make sure that's true in practice, not just in theory. Mm-hmm. So yeah, like I think that sums it up really well.
Powerful.
So eloquent. GPT.
Hey, you had to curate that. It's all good.
It passed your
filter. I massaged
filter
a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
It did sound very good. I like that. This is good.
You removed an unnecessary M dash, maybe. I don't know.
Oh
yeah,
no, it's in there.
Definitely.
No, it's in there.
It's probably accurate. So hey, your keyboard better than me. By the way, shout out to your shirt, Jake. Can we just get a little? Oh my goodness, what? That's amazing. Who's that from?
That would be our dad joke supreme, Stephen Judd.
Oh my gosh. Well, I got to get one of those. I'm going to actually see him here soon. Maybe he can bring me some swag. Yeah. I want to look cool like Jake.
I think you're already surpassed that level, my friend.
Oh, no. We're all cool in different ways. But okay, so we covered a lot of great stuff. Templating, start using it. Check out the PowerShell Wednesday talk to see their perspective on it. Just do it. Seriously. You will eventually, and you'll be like, oh, I should have done that sooner. Oh, I should have listened to Andrew when he said that on the podcast. You should have, but you don't have to live with regret. You just do it now. If you're ready. If you're not, it is just know. Whenever you're writing modules, there's this thing called templating that can introduce you to a bunch of stuff, and you don't have to actually learn it all. Like Gilbert, whenever I asked you about Saki, it's like, yeah, you can know all this hierarchy, or you could just press F5 on the keyboard, type build, and it'll build. That's it. I don't need to know all that. That's a Gilbert thing. That's not an Andrew thing. That's Gilbert's. That's for future Andrew as I develop it, as you have over the years, Gilbert, probably from being a consumer to now you're helping with these.
100%.
You don't need to be an expert to start utilizing it. And I think that's a huge takeaway, because there's a lot of fancy stuff that can be confusing and intimidating to people. But get started. PSInclusive, also check that out. Very awesome. I'm actually looking for what happens with that, because I could see even just things like best practices being really helpful for something like that, or little functions that people have here or there that like help them with something. I was thinking something I've had on pretty much every work machine I've had is some kind of Pomodoro timer that I create.
Sure.
And pop up a toast when I'm done, or trigger particular music that helps me focus, things like that.
We haven't come up with a pattern yet because, again, this was literally created today. But I was thinking of labeling repos with potentially like things around like, oh, this helps with ADHD, or like, oh, I'm dyslexic. Let me see all the dyslexic stuff, all the modules that might help with dyslexic stuff, right? Or yeah, I mean, it's
highlighting language preferences too, like just being more inclusive with your language is something that could be done. So
yeah, and that's the good thing about tools is if you do it in a tool, it's less manual work, easier to hold yourself accountable, all that kind of good thing. As tool makers, I guess we all like tools.
Yeah.
Love them.
Help your workflow. Now, I want to talk about how PowerShell can introduce you to ancillary technologies, and Jake, get your perspective on seeing some of these things in GitHub for the first time. But before that, a quick word from our sponsors.
This is the PowerShell Podcast.
Most of you know the PowerShell Podcast is sponsored and made possible by PDQ. I've had questions from listeners asking, what's PDQ and what do you do? Well, we help IT teams automate endpoint management. PDQ Connect is our cloud-based tool for real-time software deployment, patching, scripting, remote access, and vulnerability management. It's fast, flexible, and built for people who just want things to work. If you want to see it in action, head to pdq.com/podcast and check out our interactive demo. No signups, no emails, no credit card, just a fast and easy way to explore how it works. That's pdq.com/podcast. Automated endpoint management that doesn't slow you down.
Now, back to the PowerShell Podcast.
All right, what a fantastic word from our sponsors. Thank you to former me for recording that. And guys, PowerShell, and I've said this so many times, I don't know, it's kind of stuck in my mind, but PowerShell is such a fantastic gateway to so many awesome ancillary technologies. And I think when you go through the journey of getting into publishing a module and using some templating like Stucco, and there are these files that are included, in my opinion, it is a fantastic platform to go from someone who's maybe just working on one machine, writing a script, turning it into a function, making a module, to all of a sudden you understand how open source works. You're able to think about code being executed in run spaces that aren't on the machine, that don't have all the context, and defining files as tests and consuming them, and having a bunch of folders in your module. That's all these things are incredibly insightful. And Jake, I'm curious, where was your perspective on this stuff? I mean, maybe you knew it existed, but what was your perspective like when you started versus now?
I would say very started. No, I had no idea out of any of this. I didn't do my first PR until late 2021, right? Like I had to have my boss at the time like walk me through by hand what we were doing and explaining every single step. But from there, it's just like grown and grown and grown. And I will tell you now, a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, I told Gilbert, I hate JSON and I hate YAML. And I believe it was last week, maybe 2 weeks ago. I'm like, okay, I understand JSON. And I told Stevie, I'm thinking of a way to use YAML as configuration files for Crescendo. Like, it's just, you see the thing and you look at the thing and you see it multiple times. And you're like you said, that's Gilbert stuff. I don't need to worry about that. But you just keep seeing it over and over and over. And eventually you're like, it's there. I got it. Sometimes it requires, touching, getting your hands on the keyboard and actually making some changes to things, see what breaks, see what doesn't break, etc. And other times with JSON, it was just like, oh, yeah, now I get it. Yeah. So CI/CD pipelines too, like now I'm understanding that a lot better after having to get in and update the publish.yaml that Gilbert had on his Stucco article. I had to update it because there was some like out of date stuff in it. And I'm like, what?
Jesus.
How dare you? But yeah, so yeah, it's just those things have been it feeds that desire to continuously learn and branch outside of comfort, basically.
Yeah. I think that's what we're all doing with PowerShell, is growing. And
it is such an enjoyable process when you learn about badass new technology that you didn't know existed that does a ton of stuff. Like you said, CI/CD pipelines, a ton of work that drives the world. That now, I mean, there's people out there who are just writing PowerShell by themselves. Nobody else in their org writes any code at all. And you can go through that journey, do good stuff at work, and introduce yourself to stuff like CI/CD pipelines, and all of a sudden borrow these best practices, take them with you into work. Like, it's just such a transformative process. And it's so cool to see others go through it, and to be able to live through that is awesome. But Gilbert, what about you? What's your perspective on things? Because you've been around open source and contributing pretty heavily for a long time. You really geek out over this stuff. What do you make of the kind of current tooling that we have?
It's funny because I think the thing I always tell people is like PowerShell is the duct tape that you can kind of pull everything together. And it's so funny because I feel like you had mentioned this earlier. You started using Stocky as like as an end user, where I didn't know what it was doing under the hood. I was running it and it worked. That was great. And eventually I was like, what is this doing? Okay, this thing calls a module and then it calls other tasks. How does that work? And then eventually I was like, what if I write my own task? I want a task that transforms that JSON file into this. It's like, why? I don't want to tell people how to go run a thing. I just want it to run, and I want it to run automatically, right? Like, and so it's funny because I've been doing a lot of that lately. I feel like I've been writing a lot of tasks around modifying data using PowerShell, but it's being done orchestrated through Stocky.
Interesting. Taking things to the next level, as you do, as we found out.
Yeah, I could see your face during the demo, by the way, today when Gilbert was troubleshooting, and we were just like, let's let him cook, man. Let him cook.
Gilbert, take the wheel. See what happens. No, I was on the edge of my seat. Honestly, I was thinking to myself, and I didn't want to say too much in chat because I'm like, maybe they're not geeking out like I am. But to me, it was like watching sports. I'm like, is he going to drain the three? Edge of my seat. Gilbert, you did it, man. All right, guys. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. I know you have a hard stop here coming up. I'm sure I'll talk to you all soon. And just want to say, Jake, man, it's been fun to watch your community growth. You as well, Gilbert. You all have been on fire lately. And not even just lately, but like kind of maybe past year-ish. So nicely done.
Yeah, I feel like there's been a lot of podcasts. I feel like I've been bothering you a lot. So, but it's been a blast.
Hey, thanks for always saying yes. All right, y'all. Well, thank you everybody out there for listening. Drive safe, walk safe, do all that stuff safely. Keep growing and enjoy you're not the only one who's growing in this PowerShell thing. We're all at different levels in different places. All that I ask is you just join us in that growth thing together, share what you've learned, connect with other people. If you're listening to the podcast every week, like Jake said earlier, you really have to be exposed to these things over time to kind of paint that map. And then all of a sudden you run into a problem and templating is a solution, or this particular module is going to get you handled, and that's where you need to go. That's what we're looking for here. You're not going to listen to one podcast and be an expert on everything. But you can start building that map and maybe borrowing from the journey of Jake. You heard Jake say he did modules the normal way, and then maybe that could be you. Who knows? But thank you, everybody. Check us out on discord.gg/PDQ, PowerShell scripting channel, PowerShell Wednesday every single Wednesday, PowerShell podcast every single Monday. Oh my gosh, all the good things. Where can we find you guys? Do you guys want to plug anything? Jake, got anything?
JakeHildreth.com. All my stuff right there.
It's all right there.
Yeah, GilbertSanchez.com. You'll see me everywhere as Hey, it's Gilbert.
Yep. You'll see me in some places as horse or ... horse. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys, and thank you everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the PowerShell Podcast. The PowerShell Podcast is a PDQ production, making device management simple, secure, and pretty damn quick.